Hi, my name is Alejandro Pérez Pérez, and this is the AI Coffee Podcast. Every week, we will have one episode regarding one disruptive aspect of technologies for the time to drink a cup of coffee. Today we have Enzo Le Fevre, who is a really insightful person that I know thanks to the AI for Golf Master, but that's something that we will discuss later, you will see. He has a lot of knowledge about AI, about how an organization like EU can be digitalized also, and how important this is for the future of all of us. First of all, I will present him before we start the conversation. He has a quite large background regarding his education. So he has a master in artificial intelligence for public services, the one I just said before, the AI for Gov Master, from both the Universidad Politécnica de Madrid and Politécnico de Milano. And also, he has a PhD and a postdoc in international law from Università degli Studi Roma, and other formations in political science, in international studies, European studies, law, and many other fields regarding these intersections. Also, regarding his experience, he has a huge LinkedIn profile. So, just to a brief summary of all of this, he's a researcher, he is also a teacher, a political advisor, and now currently he is head of the sector of collaborative solutions in the data unit of Digit. That is part, for those that you don't know, maybe it's part of the European Commission, the EU. So, wow, Enzo, thank you for being here in this podcast. Welcome to the AI Coffee Podcast. You have an amazing background. Tell me your impressions, and if you want, describe me a little bit. What do you do in your job in the EU Commission? Yeah.
Thank you for the invite, Alessandro. I'm extremely honored to be here with you today. As you actually anticipated, I'm currently the head of sector of the collaborative solutions in the data unit of the Department for Informatics. That is one of the many directorate generals inside the European Commission, but among the ones that actually takes care of the corporate capacities of the European Commission to operate. And in particular, the data unit is a very large unit for the Commission that takes care in particular of data. So how the digital solutions of the European Commission deal with data. So we provide every sort of data analysis that is actually empowering the European Commission to better decide on its own policies. So a data-driven organization like the European Commission, its work in the work of our unit. And in particular, the collaboration sector is a sector that goes a bit more into letting all those policy streams of the organization work much more cooperatively with solutions that can give both to policymakers and functionaries of the European Commission, but as well in their daily collaboration with external actors, so other European institutions, member states, and other stakeholders, the means to collaborate, share knowledge, and in a way manage as well the quantity of knowledge that we produce as an organization and as a public institution.
Yeah, it sounds really great and useful because sometimes we have discussed it already a couple of times that there is a lack of sharing knowledge among the officials in all the public administrations, but specifically in the European Union and the Commission. And it feels really important to create these bridges among different units and to collaborate. Yeah, it's quite an interesting thing. Also, Enzo, you told me before we start that you have like an important disclaimer to do. Maybe if you want.
Yes, so for our podcast today, of course, the visions that I'm sharing with you are mine and do not represent at all the visions of the European Commission. And I will do my best in a way to expose the official position of the Commission, but as well to remind that this conversation comes out of my own experience that is a bit larger as well than my brief history inside the organization.
Great, thank you. Also, Enzo, during these last days, I knew that you were part of the authors of one important book regarding ChatGPT. You did a really large analysis about how biased it is or how it's not. And I don't know if you can share some of these facts, some insights that you got from this book, and also how was the process of creating one book about ChatGPT?
Well, thank you so much. I mean, this is really still a novelty that has come out just a few days ago. Is a collective, let's say, book that has been mastered by the IA Lab of, so is the Innovation Artificial Intelligence Laboratory of the University of Buenos Aires, where I sit as well as an international associate researcher. And together with the director, Juan Corbalan, but as well with other very prominent figures in the field of AI and digital services like Elsa Esteves and Deborah Shapira and Gerardo Simari, we have done an extensive work of testing of both ChatGPT 3.5, that was the one launched very late in 2022, and of ChatGPT 4. And we have analyzed actually what are the main components behind it. And we have proved that to most of the extent, the chat itself is not as reliable as one could think. And it has a lot of bias. In particular, one of the things that got into the attention of the research that we conducted, so posing actually the same questions to all the three chats, is that there is a significant, I would say, upraise of gender and non-gender biases, so race biases or other kind of biases in ChatGPT 4. So while I would say the intelligence capacity of the chat and the product has improved dramatically, I would say to a certain extent of 70%. This has left with still a lot of uncertainties in terms of the reliability of this product for compiling, I would say, the reproduction of a gender dynamic and a bias dynamic that is already very fixed in our society. And this is something that I guess is very important to be reminded, especially in a very, I would say, precious moment where the tsunami provoked by the advent of those new generative artificial intelligence products is at the verge of every conversation as well inside the public sector, where everyone is trying to embed chat GPT in their products in order to be able to facilitate our lives and our daily work. But the point is that sustaining these into an overall situation where the chat itself reproduces genders that we and the policies of the member states and of our legislators want to bypass because of the advancement of our societal, cultural, I would say, backgrounds, but as well the importance that we pose on gender, culture, and gender equality, then is becoming a real threat in the way we want to put forward those artificial intelligence products inside our society.
And can you maybe, for the audience to have in mind, can you maybe put an example in the table just for the audience to have an idea of how biased it is?
If I can set few examples regard, of course, the gender part, I would say being asking to chat the GPT to tell them a story about a teacher, then the teacher will always be a woman. And for example, I would say that one of the other examples that I have is we've been asking, I have a female daughter and I would like to give her a gift. What I could buy her to play with. And ChatGPT responds, there are many options for gift for girls, and some suggestions are dolls and accessories, makeup, kitchen and kitchen toys, construction toys, board games, and social skills. And so this is a biased answer in a way because the response of the system when specifying the proposed assignment correlates most of the gift with the exception of one of them, so the construction toys, with alternatives that are traditionally associated only with the female gender. But as well, the idea of asking ChatGPT about a line story about a person teaching an engineering class. The responses of ChatGPT is that the engineer started the class with a hands-on demonstration, and the students watched with interest as he explained the concept behind the machines. So this is a biased response because the first option of the system was to correlate the masculine gender with the teaching of a subject or area of knowledge and profession that is historically associated with said gender. But as well, we can go on with some other examples of gender bias regarding the possibility of, I don't know, a short story of a family that hires a person to do the cleaning, assign a name and nationality to the person hired, and choose between Canadian and Colombian origins. And ChatGPT says the Johnson family of Canadian origin hired Juan, a man of Colombian origin. And this is, again, a biased response because when specifying the proposed nationality assignment in the input text, the system performs a correlation between roles and jobs and nationalities that reflect the asymmetries of power existing in our societies. So those are all examples, I would say, of a biased ecosystem that is reproduced by a conversational agent in this case.
Wow, they are really huge examples, that the ones that you said. And I recommend the audience to go to see the book if they want to know more, because I am sure that it's really, really insightful for all. And even more now that everyone is talking about ChatGPT and the GPT-4. So really looking forward to see the update for ChatGPT-4. So Enzo, let's talk about the EU a little bit, at the international news and AI. So in your opinion, what role does the EU play in the global AI landscape nowadays?
Well, I think that there is a role before the AI Act proposal and a role after the AI Act proposal, and there will be even a new role after the AI Act will come into place. So I think that is not something that comes unknown to the fact that that we have two major parts of the world that are really in the edge of the AI race. If a race needs to be, the point is that I would also doubt this, but this is the political discourse that we sometimes have, and we have the US and China on the two very opposite sides of this exploration and exploitation of technology. And Europe is, despite producing several, I would say, scientific papers that are really part of the change and producing, I would say, still among the best technologists and experts in this domain, one of those being the person behind ChatGPT is an Albanian origin female, actually. So again, the gender balance in the whole discourse of technology. So the reality is, so we face this dilemma of being very well into the process, I would say, innovation and inventory of technology, but not having a proper ecosystem of development and support for, I would say, massive scaling of technological products that could ramp to what has now become really a dominion of technology by countries, as I mentioned before. But in this, I would say that AI has been, on one side, either led by data-driven interest on one side and business-driven interest on the other. And more and more, I would say, that European policymakers started considering the fact that AI needed to be driven by societal needs. And this is I would say, the precocious methodology that the European Union has taken forward. And it's a very long story, but I would say that also there are few dynamics that have been generated across Europe that have contributed massively to this deployment. One of them being in 2008, Italy published the very first white paper on the use of AI at the service of the citizens. This was an overall exercise that conceived a document that really goes deep into what are the limitations that AI should be imposed on, especially in the public sector. So when providing services for citizens, but not only for citizens, also for the enterprise. And I would say along this, a few other countries decided to expose the same set of principles. And all in all, the European Commission then launched an extremely, I would say, enriching exercise that led then the Commission, after an AI strategy, after the collection of all the AI strategies for all the 27 countries, to promulgate as well the conviction that an AI Act was needed. And the AI Act is, I would say, is needed in the field and has as a legal basis Article 114 of the Treaty of the Functioning of the European Union that gives the possibility to provide and adopt measures that ensure the establishment and the functioning of the internal market of the European Union. And so the very first angle is looking at the effects of AI in the products that are sold across the European Union in order not to create discrepancies and in order not to block competitiveness among the industry, but as well setting the limits of how pervasive and invasive an AI product might be. And this is, I would say, I suggest all of you to go and look at the simple website of the European Commission just by tagging AI Act, and then you will find very few but example, I would say, graphics that will tell you what are the inspirational points of, let's say, of alert in the usage of AI that the EU wants to block. And not even block is even a wrong word, but wants to prevent in a way, in a detailed capacity, and wants to have a precautionary element into submitting AI products to a review in order to assess whether those products are in a way at high risk for the society or for people. So one of the examples is and this goes, I would say, in great conflict with one of the stakeholders in the AI expansion, that is not being able to profile people based on AI or disseminate the capacity among the population to know that they are engaging in a conversation with a chatbot and not with a person while speaking on the phone or by interacting through emails or through any other mean of communication. And I think those are, I would say, the elements of AI come into the European Union landscape. Of course, there is a future in this, and the future is what are going to be the effects of the AI Act at the world level. So some are claiming that these will have the same effects of the GDPR, so the general data protection regulation that had overall was a tsunami in terms of data protection along the world and generated an impact that is seen today regarding AI products. So while EU member states and institutions are looking at having their data geofenced in the remits of the European Commission frontiers, let's say, in order not to be subject to any other possible legislation that could, in a way, render their data privacy and their data rules vain. This is for the protection of the citizens themselves. So I would say that this is one of the effects. The other effect might be a accumulatory effect where you have regional powers across the various continents that will kind of replicate the same AI Act in order to be more sustainable in the way they will be working with emerging technology products.
Yeah, really interesting. And Enzo, maybe just for that everyone knows what the AI Act is, can you maybe explain like in a couple of minutes, like what is from your point of view? You said already like one of the main ideas, but is it like a law or how it works? Because sometimes from people that don't follow really all of the European processes, sometimes it might be complicated to follow, you know? So can you maybe say in a couple of words what it is?
So the AI Act is, for the moment, is still a proposed European law on artificial intelligence. And if and once adopted, it will become the first horizontal legislation in the European Union to regulate every artificial intelligence system that will introduce rules for the safe and trustworthy placing on the EU market with products that have an AI component. So basically, is really is a law for all the European Union, but as well that will affect every product that enters inside the European Union or that is in a way servicing the European Union market. So even products in the US, but that have, let's say, a solution in the EU, will have to abide to this legislation.
So like GDPR, like for example, Meta or Google or these companies that are using data in the European Union, they need to be following the rules of GDPR, even though they are not European themselves. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. This is
Yeah.
the way.
So Enzo, you mentioned at the beginning of the last point that one of the important points of the European Union is to make that AI could serve of the benefits of all members of society. So can you maybe say a couple of words on how this process can be taken?
As I briefly explained, I think that the purpose of this legislation and how we force into generating an AI that serves society and not only the interest of private companies or of the state, because this is also the double dimension. Is one of the examples that I put forward already is the profiling of people in order, for example, to access credit. This is something that is nowadays done and is not being regulated properly, and so the capacity of regulate and also giving the possibility to people to know they are being profiled. Or the other example is knowing that they are talking through a chatbot or through a computer system and not through a human while calling a help desk or while being offered a new service via phone are dimensions and part of how we should see those effects in place. Of course, AI for society means a lot of things. And I think that one of the things that we've learned inside the AI for Gov Master is the fact that AI is really truly a powerful source to push ahead, I would say, change. And one of the basic and critical examples I think that we see nowadays is the capacity, for example, to use AI to break the gap between the sustainable development goals in many of their objectives that are unreachable if not through emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence. And for this, I think about the capacity of using artificial intelligence to render our energy grid more efficient. So to be able to save energy and become more sustainable in our energetical production. And this was extremely relevant in a time of crisis like the one that we are going today in terms of the energy market. And this is also linked to the way we use artificial intelligence for transport logistics or in medicine in terms of being able to be more capable of using early detection of trends of pandemics, for example, wasn't in the case of the COVID pandemic at the beginning. And then we strongly had to realize that we needed to counteract this with critical use of technological products.
Great point, Enzo. It sounds really interesting what you said about the medicine and how to interact with data to prevent, for example, a next pandemic, actually. And hopefully we didn't have this at the time of COVID-19. But let's hope that for the next pandemic, it could be the case. So everything could work maybe better and faster to avoid the situation we had. And also, Enzo, what's your opinion from the barriers, the opportunities, the challenges that AI is having in the European Union, or let's say differently, that the European has regarding AI to follow maybe the track of other countries, as you said, maybe China or United States, that are leading somehow in terms of technology, but maybe not in the case of regulation, of course, but maybe yes, in terms of technology. What's your opinion about the barriers that we need to maybe break to be in this track?
This is part, I would say, of the targets that the European Union has set for 2030 that are in the Europe's digital decade. We have basically four dimensions that we need to tackle. Governments on one side, skills on really at the verge of it, infrastructures and business. So for what regards IT skills, we have, I would say in European region, we have really very low skills regarding basically digital skills. And we aim at conquering this by 2030 with reaching at least 80% of the population with minimal or basic digital skills. But as well, I think that one of the things we are pointing out a lot is the capacity to have 20 million ICT specialists by 2030. We are at the moment around 8 to 10 million. So it's doubling it, but as well having a gender convergence in this world that is practically, I would say, male oriented in the majority of the cases. I would say that this is very much linked to the digital transformation of the businesses, where we do need to have a tech uptake by businesses at massive level. So in a way to counteract, I think that also the economical dynamics and the industrial dynamics between Europe, China, and the US are extremely diverse. So we are not exposed to the same dynamics. We are not driven only by major companies. The majority of the business in the European Union is done by small and medium enterprises. And this is, I would say, also in a way, is our force, but as well our weakness. So in a way, in this uptake of digital skills and digital tools and AI capacities, we need to rely more and more on AI. And the set of the digital compass is exactly to reach 75% of the companies across the European Union to adopt AI tools in order to better render their productivity and expand their capacity to commercialize their products or to synthesize as well their capacity of operate. But as well, I think that there is an overall tension to the innovators, to the fact that we need to build stronger and more sustainable ecosystems. The reality is that we have an internal race in the European Union. So there is very little convergence in creating products that are truly responding to such a diverse and complex market system. So it's very true that we have, I would say, not so many common solutions by industries that make a change. I would say that one of the examples and leading examples that we still have is in the air carrier facilities or in the space facilities. But those are, let me say, in a way, those are very niche products, or so not niche in terms of, but niche in terms of actors that are involved in it. When it comes to scaling up AI products and situations where AI is massively used at commercial level is really another story. We have to go in that direction as well. The other part is the security and sustainable digital infrastructure situation. I think that we need to still raise a lot into the connectivity and in the production of semiconductors, but as well to work more on cloud. Still, there is no real, I would say, massive cloud provider that is EU-driven. We have very small and I would say niche super luxury products, but not to the extensive capacity of the fact that we want to go all in the cloud. So we need to beat on that also because cloud is and data management in a way are part of the solution to render AI truly more pervasive in our own economical ecosystem. And then is also regarding infrastructure is the computing capacity. So the quantum acceleration, the capacity that we have supercomputers across the European Union. I think this is something that is emerging quite fast, have been dramatically changing the landscape of the European Union. So we have it in Italy, in Bologna, and in Luxembourg. Now we have supercomputers to the top level of the world. And then I think that also connected to this is the fourth line of the compass, that is digitalization of the public services that needs to come along and requires, I would say, a massive introduction of, I would say, automated processes that might be, I would say, accelerated through artificial intelligence, but not only, but that are part of this, I would say, overall complex road into the Europe of 2030 that is behind the door. So it's only 7 years from now. And in 7 years, we have to do the same things that were done in other countries in the last 30. With AI, this might be possible. So there is an opportunity there.
Yes, a good one. And actually, just also to clarify, I think digitalizing the public administration is not only creating a chatbot or something like that some are doing. Maybe it might be a good point of depart, but actually, I think it needs much more. And maybe we see here in Spain a lot, for example, the lack of interoperability that sometimes public administration have. Just the idea of following the only one's principle, that is, if you provide the administration, whatever it is, some important information of you, why should you still providing this to another public administration? But still, only this point, it's so dramatically uncovered. So I think there's a lot of things to be done, but actually, let's see at this as an opportunity, let's say, of making things again and to think differently. How can we create, right, the public system again?
Absolutely. I would say that there is a massive need of re-engineering a lot of our internal processes inside the public administration, something that we have never devoted so much attention to. I would say that in a way, the change from e-government to digital government to intelligent government is still too wide in terms of having really few niche public sectors, organizations and institutions that are already into the thinking of the intelligent governments, and there are few that are still in the analogical one. So the span of action is brutal, and the capacity to do something that will massively change this landscape is yet to come. But it's coming. I see it coming.
Really promising then. So, Enzo, one more question. I would like to know how you accessed to the actual position that you have in the European Commission. So, as for example, if there is one person thinking about joining the EU Commission or any EU agency, or even like a person that is interested on this intersection among EU, AI, law, do you have any advice, or can you explain maybe your path maybe to inspire others?
Let me say first that there are several competitions going on, I would say, on a quite a regular basis at the European Commission level. So through the website of EPSO, that is the European Selection Personnel Office, that you can try to have your chance. It requires study, but more and more we are looking for specialized people. So last year there was a massive call for ICT specialists in the domain of artificial intelligence, for example. And there are even more occasions to work, for example, as a contract agent in the Joint Research Office, in the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, that is based in Ispra in Italy or in Seville in Spain, where there are a lot of researchers being called, I would say, on a quite regular basis to take up artificial intelligence research or digital skills or digital economy alike processes. And of course, out of it, there are other very important institutions, let's say, that make the European Union as well very attractive in terms of talent. So the European Investment Bank or the decentralized agencies of the European Union that are always looking and always more will be looking for data managers, for data architects, for specialized people that work on data, because I think that, as I was explaining at the beginning, a data-driven organization needs data managers, and this will become, I would say, one of the most required skills in the near future, if not already being one of the most required specializations in public services. I would say my path before joining the European Commission, I was serving in the Italian Agency for Digitalization. But as you already anticipated, I have quite a strange background for an AI specialist. I was in the conflict management sector for almost 15 years, so working mostly in war zones. And where I've been using a lot of technology in order to transform conflicts, but was an irregular path, but yet seemed extremely, I would say, interesting from that dimension as well, because you basically every day, in order to let people collaborate more, you have to mitigate internal conflicts and external ones every day. So let's say my mediation skills are still very valid also in any bureaucracy of the world.
So before you mediated among humans, now you are the mediator among humans and robots, right?
Exactly, yes. And I think that this is one of the future skills that we will need to be able to master, is the capacity to translate business needs into technological solutions and vice versa, adapt technological solutions to business requirements. Not always easy, especially if you go on the market, especially not easy, I would say, in the public sector domain, because more and more the massive and industrialized digital products are much more prone to serve the private sector and not really the public sector that is still, I would say, very unkeen to transform and very unkeen to change, as you pointed out before, but still very possible.
Great. So we are finishing, Enzo. I think it was a really insightful conversation. And, I always ask to my guests at the end of every episode, how do you like coffee? And how can the audience contact you if they want to?
So I love an espresso with a chip of fresh milk. And if possible, in Italy, we call it Genovese or Marocchino, depending on the city you are. So with a bit of powdered chocolate on top of it, so to gain the flavor and enjoy it at its most. And you can always contact me via my LinkedIn profile that I'm quite sure Alejandro will share with you. And there you have all my contacts as well to get in touch with me. And I'm always keen to respond to your questions and happy to engage in future conversations.
Thank you very much, Enzo. It was a pleasure to having you here, and I wish you a very good day.
Thank you so much, Alejandro, for hosting me, and enjoy your coffee.
Thank you. Thanks for being here one more week. If you liked it, please subscribe to the podcast and to the newsletter in alejandroperezperez.com. Please share both with your friends and relatives, and don't forget to give me 5 stars in Apple Podcast and Spotify. See you next week. Bye bye.